Sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
I'm really
ready?
sorry to
It's
hear
rock
that.
and roll.
I'm ready,
Well,
almost. It's
I'm
ready.
really sorry to hear that. But you are. Why? I just died. It was no fault of those. Oh. Those people.
We are live.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Bowling Green Zoning Board of Appeals, the May 10th meeting. I will tell you a little bit about how we work. You are here asking for us to take an existing zoning rule and ask to change it for you. If your variance is granted, it will stay with the property. So that means if you, just because you got a room to put up a 10-foot fence or something, it doesn't mean you could always have wherever you live. It was going to stay there with the property. We will ask you when you're telling us why you're requesting this variance to explain to us what particular difficulties you will have with the current zoning law and why you need to have a variance granted for you, please. We will also ask you to come to the microphone, to the podium and tell us why. And I will alert all my fellow board members. If you'll notice, our court reporter is not here in person tonight. She is going to be recording this off of the Zoom. So every time you ask a question or talk, please talk into the microphone and please don't have any sidebar conversations because she really can't pick those up through Zoom.
Did we say our name before we speak so she knows who's?
She'll see it.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
My apologies.
Now, let me explain how it's going to go. We're going to read your request for your variance. The city will explain the existing rule. And when Heather is finished with her explanation, you may come to the podium. Please state your name and your address, and then go into the reasons why you're requesting this variance. The board members will ask you questions. And then we will close the public hearing. Everybody stays in the room, but we won't just take testimony from you anymore. And we will discuss it among ourselves. We'll come back into a public meeting. We will vote and you will know immediately tonight whether or not your request was granted. If it's not granted, you have the option of going to the Court of Common Pleas. So I'm going to ask you if you're going to testify, even if you think you're going to testify, would you please stand now and be sworn in? If you're going to testify, yes, please. If you're going to be speaking, I need to have you sworn in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth so help you God? You're all sworn in now. Thank you very much. Well, the first order of business, gentlemen, is the approval of the minutes from the April 12th, 2023 meeting. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Seconded.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It looks like the minutes motion has carried. We have two variances tonight. The first one is Mark and Christina Lavenia. 308 West Worcester Street have requested a variance to allow the construction of a 10-foot by 18-foot addition, a deck, which would encroach 10 feet into the required 10-foot side yard setback to the west and would encroach 13.9 feet into the required 30-foot rear yard setback to the north. There. And you can watch right up there on the screen.
Thank you. So this property is zoned R2 single family residential. And under section 150.16, the bulk and density regulations, you'll see that the R2 zoning district has a minimum setback of 10 feet from the side yards. And then the rear yard is 30 feet. Here's an aerial view of the property that you'll see is on a corner there. So it does have the two front yards. And then it does have a few parcels there. Using pictometry, you can see a front view of the house there. And then looking the other direction, that'd be facing west. Then looking at the side of the home, that'd be facing east. And looking at the rear of the home, you can somewhat see there the door coming out where they wish to place that deck. Here's a picture of the front of the house. And then this is looking down the side of the house to the west. And then here's looking at the back of the house a little closer where they'd like to, again, put that deck. I know you can't see it on the screen, but it's in your packet. You can see the dimensions there, the proposed deck. And then the distances proposed from the rear property line and then to build up to that side property line. We did receive one phone call from a neighbor. I believe he's here tonight just with some questions. Otherwise, we didn't receive anything in writing. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Ministry of Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first-class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Who's going to speak? Okay, you want to go up there and give your name and address, please?
Hello, Mark Lavania, 308 West Wooster Street.
Okay, now you want to explain to us why, what particular difficulties you have with the variance is the way it's written and why
Yes,
you need it changed.
yes, thank you for hearing us. Well, as you might have seen from the picture, there's presently concrete steps stepping down and the concrete is deteriorating badly. So we need to replace the steps anyway. So we thought, okay, it would be lovely to have, instead of just some concrete steps, have a deck. And we believe that it would make a appreciation of the value. It would be much nicer looking than what's currently there. And it would be something that we would enjoy as homeowners, to be able to have a deck to step out when the weather's nice. And so we'd love to be able to build something there to enjoy some outside space.
Okay. Did you wish to say something?
Christina Lavania, 308 West Wooster. Your question was specifically about the problem with the current opportunity to build.
Right.
We don't have that space. So
Talking to the microphone.
in order to build any kind of deck where those stairs come out, we would be within, my understanding is that we would be, we have to have a variance to be able to do that at all. Because the garage that you see, so where you see the trash cans on the picture
Mhm.
and the garage there, that belongs to our neighbor.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually the edge of our house, the east edge of our house is our property line.
Okay,
So
What, yeah.
the
West
west,
side.
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I'm sorry. The west side of our house is our property line. The photograph that showed the multiple parcels, would you mind pulling that one up? So if you can see there, we really don't have any room on the side of our house that adjoins our neighbor's property. So we're asking for permission to build the deck in that space.
Okay,
I don't know if that answered your
that
question.
answers the question. Thank you.
Dan and I were discussing this earlier. If our understanding is correct, the property line is technically in the middle between our house and that carriage house garage. So it's like about like a foot and a half away from the edge of our building. But to your point, exactly right, even just to even just to replace the steps, it would be within that area that we're not allowed to. So we have to replace the steps. So whether we build a deck or just rebuild steps, the steps are within that zone that's prohibited by the zone, in that area prohibited by the zone, whatever we build.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who wishes to address this request? Sure. Excuse me.
Jan Hemsath, 316 West Wooster. If you can go back to your last picture. So there's a long story that nobody wants to hear, but basically there's 3 feet between the wall of my garage and the wall of their house. And so when Mark and I talked, they were talking about having it right up against basically a foot and a half from the building. My request, and we agreed, is that they just move it to the edge of their building. So there'll be 3 feet between the deck and my garage.
Okay,
And the only other concern I had was the height. And he's gonna come out the level of the steps, and that's fine by me. So I have no complaint after we talked, and from what I just said are the two things we agreed to.
okay. Thank you very much. It's nice to know that neighbors can talk to each other and work things out. That's very important. Members of the board, do you have any questions or comments for the gentleman and
My,
Mrs.?
my main concern is the close proximity of the garage. If they have grill or something catches on fire. I think that's one of the main reasons there's supposed to be some space between things, but the house is on the property line too, so.
Can't win.
I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 on that, unfortunate. So.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Gentlemen, you want to discuss it amongst yourself?
I think it's one of those situations where there were some parcel splits done back before you owned the property. Your hardship is that those parcel splits were apparently done inappropriately. It's no fault of your own. There's your hardship. I have no problem.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved to approved as a. I will second.
Oh, you second?
Any more discussion?
Wait a minute, who said it? You, Flieger, no, Ostrowski said
Chris,
move.
Thought you were
okay.
trying to ask a
our
question.
secretary
No, I
is
was-
slow, so we have to take time.
Yeah.
Oh, you know.
Appreciate it, yeah. Okay, would you like me to call the roll?
Would you please?
I will, yes. Start with you, Judy.
Okay, yes.
Hobie,
Yes.
Rod Noble,
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski,
Yes.
David Flieger,
Yes.
Jay Sockman,
Yes,
and Matt Bostorff, yes.
Your request for your variance has been granted. Now, you'll have to see Heather tomorrow or so to get the proper paperwork so that you can start it, okay? Thank you. Okay, the second request is Sean Brennan, 208 Eberly Avenue, has requested a variance to allow the conditional use of a bed and breakfast, which would not meet 2 of the 13 required conditions stipulated in the R2 Single Family Zoning District. Specifically, the variance is requested on the conditions listed in section 150-02 B and C, which reads as follows. The lot shall have a minimum of 80 feet of frontage on a major street. The property has 75 feet of frontage. And a 6-foot-high live evergreen screen from all adjoining properties shall screen the off-street parking spaces. Heather?
Thank you. So under section 150.20, that is the R2 Single Family Residential Zoning District, which is what this property is zoned. You can have a bed and breakfast as a conditional use, but as part of that conditional use, you have to meet all the conditions listed under 150.20. Now, that is really tiny, so I don't expect anybody to read that. So there is a copy in your packet. Also gave you a copy of the conditions that the property owner signed, which obviously he did not initial the 2 that he wishes to have the variance for. So in this case, this would be having that minimum lot frontage of 80 feet on a major street. So a major street, which is my next slide here, is defined under the subdivision regulations, which is section 151.04. And it's under the definitions, and there's major streets. So you'll see it's Worcester, Mercer, Maine, Conneaut, Van Camp, Napoleon, Manville, Sandridge, Haskins, Poe, Gypsy, Thurston, Winter Garden, and Pearl. So clearly Eberly's not on there. So that's why you would need a variance for that. Here's an aerial view of the property. So you can see there is sort of a main parcel there and then a smaller parcel. Using pictometry, here's a view of the house. That would be the southern edge of the house. Here's looking right at the front of the house, looking at the rear of the house, and then the other side. Here's a picture of the front of the home. Another picture more angled towards the front. Another picture looking a little more down the street. And then another picture of the other side and front of the house. There was a sketch as part of your packet, again, just to give you an idea of the layout of the home. I'm sure the owner can explain more of that than I can, but at least you have a copy of what was submitted. Again, hard to read, so I can go back to any picture. We did have an email today from a neighbor. I gave you a copy in front of you, but I will read that. It is from Amy Robinson, sent Wednesday, May 10th, 2023 at 10:38 a.m. to the planning department. The subject is zoning board of appeals hearing regarding request for variance on Eberly Avenue. It reads to the members of the planning department. We live at 218 Eberly Avenue, adjacent to Sean Brennan's home at 208 Eberly Avenue, and we received the notification about the variance. We wanted to briefly provide feedback via email because we won't be able to attend this evening's meeting. We have heard from Sean about his plans, and we are comfortable with his home only having 75 feet of frontage rather than the 80, and also with his driveway not having an evergreen screen. The variance request for those two conditions seems quite reasonable for a small owner-occupied B&B, and we say this from our perspective, owning and occupying the home located next to his house on the side of the driveway. We appreciate this opportunity to provide feedback to the city. After years and years of the property's unfinished house sitting empty, it has been nice to see 208 Eberly being taken care of and occupied first by the previous owner and now by Sean. Thanks, Amy Robinson and Amilcar Chalou. I did forget to mention too, that one of the conditions is that the application for a bed and breakfast be reviewed by the fire chief or his or her designee to ensure that all appropriate safety regulations are met. So we did contact the fire department and they said they will schedule an inspection with Sean and they had no concerns regarding the variance. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by administrative code are posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Heather, before I call up Mr. Brennan, to refresh my memory, in the new zoning code, there's waiting approval. The 80 feet of front frontage has been removed.
So in the latest draft of the zoning code, I say draft because it's a living document, it changes. As of today, under 150.50 bed and breakfast inn, which is page 57, there still are some of the same criteria, but they're reduced quite a bit. So it is definitely the being on a major street. And then the frontage is not there any longer. And then the live screening though is still there. So one or two conditions technically, because the live screening is one, and then the major street and the 80 feet are one condition altogether. Those two are removed.
Okay, thank you.
And there are also no off-street parking space minimums. right?
Correct. Yes.
As there is now.
Yeah, basically it goes down to 6 criteria, and I have a copy if you want to read those.
You want to pass it out?
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead. Okay, Mr. Brennan?
Good evening. My name is Sean Brennan. I live at 208 Eberly Avenue. Thanks for your time tonight and consideration here. I guess the first issue would be the 80 feet wide. It's interesting that just several years ago, this property was 2 lots, 2 50-foot lots. And just in the last 5 or 6 years, Heather might be able to correct me on this one. The last 5 or 6 years, Dave Wilson sold half of the lot to Amy and Amilcar. So there's not a possibility for another house to be in there because those lots are split.
Okay.
So that issue is to me, it's not that big an issue. I'm not sure where would that come from in the original code? Like, why would it be 80 feet? And it is removed from the current draft of the new code. The major street, Eberly is a pretty wide street. I didn't think to take a measurement of, but it does have parking on one side. I do have a driveway that'll hold 6 cars plus garage space. So it's not an issue of that all, and I only have 2 rooms for the bed and breakfast plus mine. So I don't see that as an issue because I don't think I'm going to be plugging up the neighborhood with just that much traffic.
Okay,
The live screening, we don't allow now in the current code, and I believe in the new code or what's currently proposed, we don't allow 6-foot fences in the front yard.
right.
So I'm not sure why we're looking for 6-foot evergreens in the front yard. And if you look, hey, Heather, can you go to one of the aerials? You'll notice that the pine trees on the south side, those pine trees are actually Amy and Amilcar's. And they intentionally stopped the evergreens beside the garage, and they've got lower plantings out to the street. They've got even more plantings now. I don't think it would look very good if I came along and then put 6-foot evergreens right next to their plantings that they've spent time and money on. Any questions, I guess?
Gentlemen, do you have any questions, comments?
I meant to look at Sean. I ran out of time. I thought I didn't have time. Did you own the house when the renovation was done or did you buy it after? it
No,
was-
the house was under renovations for more than 20 years. Tim Myers
Mhm.
started it. And then in 2015, Dave Wilson bought it. And I believe he started occupying it by 16 or 17.
Okay, and then it was for sale for a while, right?
Yeah, it sold once and that deal fell through like 4 years ago. And then I bought it off Dave when he moved to Oklahoma.
Did you buy it with the intention of having it as a bed and breakfast?
No, that wasn't my original intention, but it's a really big house. It's got some really neat features. If anybody knows Tim Myers, he's a pretty neat dude. I've only met him a couple times, but.
And it's your intention to continue it indefinitely as a
Yeah.
bed and breakfast?
Yeah,
You live there as the owner and
yes, correct. Like Heather, could you pull up the floor plan? You'll notice on it's got some unique features. I might need to walk over there. Well, I can show you.
No, you can't. You need to stay near a mic. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
In the front rooms, there's no square corners. All the interiors have round corners. Got a very unique look to it. And there's a lot of time and effort put into them. I won't say anything, but I'll walk over there and point when I'm talking. Even walking up the stairway, there's curved corners. It's kind of a unique house. It's very energy efficient. They both put a lot of time and effort into it. Hence the name that I've already chosen is the Wilson Myers House.
I have a question.
Yes.
Have you ever managed a bed and breakfast before?
Bed and breakfast, no.
And why would we want to have a bed and breakfast at this location?
Talked about it for decades.
Pardon me?
I've talked about it for a long time. Yeah, I am a businessman. I own several other LLCs.
Bed and breakfast can have an effect on a community in that they obviously bring in a lot of people at various times, unlike a rental, which has somebody that would be there on a longer permanent basis.
Mhm.
Have you determined why this particular location would be a good spot for bed and breakfast in Bowling
Well,
Green?
it's good accessibility. It's 4 blocks from downtown for walking. It is, Eberly isn't a really narrow street. It's kind of interesting for being such a short street in a little side neighborhood. It's a pretty wide street. I guess it's just something I've always talked about doing. And to me, it's a great candidate of a house for it.
Just to clarify, I mean, a difference would be that it has to be owner occupied. I just want to make sure you knew that
Right.
part.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So there is, Heather and I have discussed this several times, first of all, I do not plan on using Airbnb at all. It's a software. It's got some negative connotations. There's lots of other software out there to use for management software. It's not a short-term rental. It's owner occupied. So it's not a situation of people in and out in large groups. It's 2 rooms, 2 parking spaces. It's not really going to have much traffic.
Thank you.
It'll have 2 night minimums. I'm actually thinking about a 3-night minimum.
Any other questions or comments?
So there is, one of the question would be adequate parking, because you're saying only 2 rooms are gonna rent it. There's no anticipation it's the couples that are gonna be coming in there and not, so there's gonna be conceivably if 4 people came in there, 4 cars.
I've got a 6-car driveway.
So-
You still got adequate room.
So I don't know if anyone else drove by, I drove by
Yeah.
today. It's a very clean property, large driveway.
Okay.
I think those, you put a wall of evergreens up would just be not in the whole neighborhood.
It's clearly one of the nicest homes on the street.
Yes.
Oh, thank
Yes,
you.
it is.
Yes.
Question about that.
Any other comments, questions? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. Gentlemen, would you like to discuss it amongst you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Someone else wants to testify. And
Okay, you want to come up and give your name and address?
Hello, my name is Jamie Sands. I live at 877 Country Club Drive, Bowling Green, Ohio, 43402. And I used to do tourism marketing for Bowling Green. I'm very adept in tourism marketing. I love community development, economic development. It's near and dear to my heart and something I am passionate about. I also know that the bed and breakfast clientele is in fact different than a lot of the hotel motel tax generating heads in beds that we all so dearly love and appreciate and people coming to town. So I know that there are a number of people that Sean knows and we volunteer on the Black Swamp Arts Festival together and who would occupy this. So it would be maybe my parents when they come to town instead of staying with me. When I don't think it's going to draw any traffic from our hotels. I think it's just going to be kind of a family, an additional offer of stays. And there are times in which our hotels are full and like I said, it is, we know in tourism marketing, it is a different demographic. So it's not, but it's an additional offer and I think that it's good for economic development.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And it also adds some nice character to town.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does. Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
It's not specified anywhere in any of the zoning or taxation about the bed tax. Bowling Green has a bed tax. And I will be collecting and paying bed tax for every night occupied.
Good.
That's my.
Yeah, it's because it's not, it doesn't follow the same rules and regulations that hotels do.
Correct.
Bed and breakfast don't.
Correct.
But you're going to do that, you say.
I'm going to do that. Yeah, actually, the software you check into, they have additional spots when you have the billings that you can add just bed tax on there.
Thank you.
That's good to know, Sean. Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to close the public hearing and gentlemen, and give any discussion?
I anticipated a little pushback on this, given the recent residential pedestrian discussion in the new zoning code, but glad to see that there wasn't. In fact, if I consider conditional uses, I personally take kind of a hard line with the conditions there, but the fact that you have support from a neighbor
It's extremely
is-
important.
Is very good. So all my concerns have been allayed. Problem.
Anybody else?
I think a lot of the pushback you're talking about is the Airbnb style
Yes,
versus a bed and breakfast. They fall under a different set of rules.
They do.
At
Yeah.
this,
Understand
at
that.
this point, they do.
They're very different.
Intrusion in the neighborhood, especially that particular block.
Yeah. Bed and breakfast are very different than it being
Absolutely.
Airbnb.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion? If not, we're going back into the public hearing. And may I have a motion?
I move the variance be approved as submitted.
Second.
Did you
Who
get
said
that?
second?
Chris seconds. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, when the secretary is ready, he can call the roll.
Kobe Johnson,
Yes.
Rod Noble.
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski,
Yes.
David Flieger.
Yes.
Jay Sockman,
Yes.
Matt Bostorff, yes. Judy Ennis.
Yes. Your request for your variance has been granted. Thank you very much. I'm excited that we're going to have a B&B, a bread and breakfast in town. Good luck to you. Is there any further lobby visitation? Is there anybody here who would like to visit with us? Hearing none, may I have a
It's me again. Thank you so much for your service to our community. It's rather thankless, I'm sure, but you do a lot and you have to stay up on a lot of things. So I just want to say thank you for what
thank
you do.
you. He's adorable.
You don't say that about me.
Yeah, I know. I will next time.
Okay.
Okay. May I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. Third.
Good luck.
Jeez,
Thank
Al.
you.
Yes, yeah.